Hello, everyone. Happy Lord's Day. Hope y'all had a good day. So, I've been spending a few days with my sugar babies at their own houses, and we've been having fire drills. And Luke, the other day, he's 13 years old, and he just didn't quite understand why I would take him out, him and his brother outside to the fire hydrant, which that's where the fire department need to be, at the fire hydrant, so I just chose that place. And so he's 13 now, so I thought it's time for him to know some things. So I gave him a brief testimony. So it's been on my heart. So it stirred up this memory of what God did for our family. And I'm so thankful he did. So I'm going to share it with you on this Lord's Day. This is my testimony, true story. Everything I tell you is true, okay? And God is good. When I say I'm his favorite sometimes, you got to understand. I honestly feel that way because he's been so good to me. Ooh, he's been so good to me. So, many, many, many years ago, when my youngest, when my third child was a little baby, he was about a year old. And I had, so I just had 3 children. So that's about 27 years ago. So my husband at the time had went all night fishing on a Saturday night. I had put my other children to bed. Of course, the baby was in his bassinet in my room, in a sound asleep. And I had a split level house. So they had a regular house, and then they had built on the other 2 parts of the house. So my front room and my daughter's room was down 2 steps. And then the kitchen, laundry room, and my son's room was down 2 steps. The rest was up. So my bedroom and the other family room was on the top level. So that's just to clarify where we were all at, okay? So, you know me, I can't just tell you one story. I had to build the story up. So anyway, I had really been serving the Lord and been studying his word. And I was a new Christian. And I was bound and determined I was going to honor the Lord's Day. I was going to put God first, and that's what I've been trying to do ever since. But I was a new Christian, so I was just learning some things. And I hadn't been trying to tell the Lord, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to mind you. So he had been speaking to me on the Lord's Day. And I said, I'm going to honor you. So the Lord's Day is just for worshiping him. It's a day of rest. And we're not to do any work on the Lord's Day. So it's Saturday night. Well, my routine was always put my children to bed, try to put my children to bed by 9. And then that other time is when I clean my house. Now, some of y'all worry about your house a little bit too much when you're raising these kids. Now, I cleaned as I went, but my major housework was done after they went to bed. I was sweeping out the house. I would do laundry and do dishes and clean the bathrooms after my children went to bed, so I could spend more time with them while they are awake. So anyway, side note, spend more time with your children, less time with your housework, because that other stuff don't really matter. Anyway, what really matters is the sugar babies. So I had done the dishes, and I had a pan of water sitting there where I didn't dump it out. I'd rinsed them. And I was doing the last load of laundry, and I thought, I had to stay up so I could fold those clothes and do the few things. So I had stayed up. And it was getting close to midnight. I was in there reading my Sunday school lesson and checked on the children. Everybody was fine. I thought, oh, I set me an alarm. Back then, you had a little alarm. You just winded it up, and it set on your nightstand table. We didn't have these cell phones or anything. And so I set it to 10 minutes to midnight, because midnight on Saturday night is the Lord's Day after that. So I went in there. The dryer just needed some more time, so I shut it. I set it for another 5-6 minutes. I went in there just a few minutes before midnight, and I opened that dryer. I thought, I'll fold this laundry in these few minutes, and then I can go to bed. When I reached my hand in there in that dryer, it wasn't dry. Them clothes were still damp. And you know, the enemy, the tempter, came and said, it doesn't matter about those. Maybe just need 10 more minutes for them to dry. What does that matter to the Lord? The Lord understands you need your laundry. And the old tempter come around and tell you some things that stuff don't matter. But Lord said, honor my father, honor the Sunday, you know, the Lord's day, do no work on that day. So, no, I said no to the old tempter. And I shut that dryer door, and I said, I don't care if they mildew, I'll rewash them on Monday. So went on to bed. I was tired. After you try to raise 3 kids, you're tired, do all your housework. I was tired. So I tried to go to sleep. I probably wasn't asleep 20 minutes, and I heard a loud noise, popping noise, sound like something really loud, startled me. Then I smelled something. I was awake then when I started to smell something. So when I stood up from my bedroom, remember my bedroom was a raised area, my head was in smoke. Even talk about just brings back so many memories. So I went to where the smoke was coming from, was my kitchen laundry room area. And I seen the flames was coming up behind that dryer, had a dryer fire. So what did I do? I thought, I'll go get that pan of water and I'll throw that on there. You are not supposed to throw water on electrical fire. I did not know this, people. I did not know this because I was young and I was in a fear for my children's life and my life. I threw it on there, and miraculously, nothing happened. Thank God, because I've learned since then that it sometimes could make the fire go bigger. So thank God nothing happened. That's the first miracle. And then my mind was, I'm not gonna let this fire get to me and my children. So I decided I'm going to get this dryer out with the Lord's help out of my house. I'm going to put this fire out. I'm going to save me and my children and my home. So I grabbed that dryer, which was burning hot, and I pulled it out away from the wall. So I don't know how. And when I did, the plug-in was still plugged in up to the wall. And back behind the plug-in was where the flames was coming from the back. And I thought the fire was on the cord going up to that plug-in. And all I could think about was like a stick of dynamite. And if that fire got to that plug-in, it would probably blow, and there would be no chance. So I had all along been asking Jesus to help us and help me to get this thing out of here. So the only thing I could think of is I got to unplug this dryer. The only thing I could do was reach my hand in that fire to get to that plug. So I had the dryer pulled out enough that I could put my hand all the way in the back into that plug-in and unplug it. All this arm went in the fire. I got it unplugged, and I just yanked it as hard as I could, and I wobbled that thing out. And my back door was right by the alley. So I don't know how, but I picked that thing up and wobbled it out, and I got it through that back door. Then on the other side of that back door was a fence. Don't ask me how, but I somehow got that thing over the fence. It was just like not a 6-foot fence, but normal chain link fence. I picked that thing up and threw it over there, still on fire. When I got that out in the alley, I breathed a sigh of relief, and I turned around and go get my kids. Now, by that time, that part of the house was low with smoke. So I grabbed my son, which was right by there, and I grabbed him, and we not army crawl, but got down low and got through there. I got him, I woke my daughter up, opened the front door, and got them outside. Then I went back for my baby. And when I had went in my bedroom, remember my bedroom was up, 2 steps up. When I went back for my baby, there was a place over his bassinet that was arched. Like the hand of God had just covered that bassinet with that little Jeremy. And kept the smoke over from getting to him. And that was another miracle. Because, smoke inhalation takes your life. I was able to reach down in there and get that baby. I said he was about 1 year old. I got him out. We was out in the front yard, and I started looking at my arm. All my hair was singed off and burnt off, but I had no kind of wounds. And the fire department had got there, and ambulance had got there, and they wanted to check me out. I said, check my children out first. Well, none of them suffered any smoke inhalation, thank God. But I suffered a little bit because I was the whole time head up into smoke. I asked them, what about my children? I kept saying, what about my children? And then they said, what did you do? I said, well, I put my hand in the fire and I unplugged it and I got it outside. And the fireman was like, no, who helped you? I said, Jesus. I said, God helped me. And they looked at me because I was a littler woman then. And they said, you managed to get that dryer outside over that fence and in the alley where it is right now. I said, yeah. And he said, then you got your kids out. I said, yeah. And he said, you put your hand in that fire? Mm-hmm. So the medics came and looked, and they were miraculously not burnt at all. Don't ask me. It was a miracle of God. And then they said, how did you get it out? I said, I grabbed it. So they checked my hands. No burns. No burns. So when I say I've been through the fire, I've been through the fire. When I say I've been his favorite, because the hand of God arched over that baby's bassinet, that's the same God I pray to when my troubles come around. And we kind of get off base sometimes and think our God is a little God. He can't do these big things. But let me tell you, our God is a big God. He can do all things. And sometimes we got to reach back in our memory and say, yeah, you was with me on that night. And you gave me strength when even the firemen said that shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have been able to get that dryer full of clothes on fire. It was on fire inside. I shouldn't have been able to get that thing out of the house. I shouldn't have been able to lift it. I should have not been able to touch it with no burns in my hands. I shouldn't have been able to put a water on an electrical fire. Yeah, I did all those things. I made some mistakes. But thank God that Jesus was with me, and that hand of God rested over my child. And when I say the devil fought that child at birth, and then that fire, God has a great work for your children. That's why you take them to Sunday school. You pour the love of God in them, and you pray for them. And I'm praying for my children. I pray for my daughter, my son, my other son, and my other son, and now their loved ones, their families, and my sugar babies. Give them to God and ask God to watch over them, because in the middle of the night, if I would have listened to the tempter, and if I would have left that dryer on for those 10 more minutes, that dryer and that electrical fire would have blew, and I wouldn't be here right now. I might have lost Robbie. Definitely Robbie, because he was right by that dryer. Then me and my son was the next room over, my baby. And then I would imagine Christina being out there in the little, maybe 8 years old, being out there in the front yard with all her family gone. No, it could have been a lot worse. I minded God. So the obedience to God's word is why we do it. These are the reason why we do what we do. When it says, this is the Lord's day, I don't do the laundry on the Lord's day. I don't vacuum on the Lord's day. Yes, we have to cook because we have to eat and things like that. We have to be reasonable about it. But when it comes to work, no, I don't work on the Lord's day. I'm glad the Lord taught me years ago, before that night with that fire, to honor him and be obedient to him. Because those 10 minutes that if I was disobedient to him would have cost me my life and my children's life. So the lesson being, fires can happen to anyone. It wasn't because I'm a bad person or anything, but God gave me a warning a little something in there, a little something in there that said, I'm going to be obedient to him. And that's what I did. And because I was obedient and I got, turned that dryer off when I did, it didn't catch fire. It didn't blow up. And no fire alarm went off. I had 3 fire alarms in that house. Not a one of them went off. So I just wonder, when's the last time you did a fire drill? When's the last time you checked those fire alarms? Check them. Check them. Check them with real smoke. Don't just push the button. It's because the life you save may be your own. Be obedient. Do your family fire drills. But more importantly, be covered underneath the hand of God at all times. Underneath the hand of God, that's where I want to be. Just cover me, Lord. Cover my family like you did little Jeremy that night. I thank God for his blessings and his protections. I've been through the fire. I know he's a great big God that's able to take care of me. And we get upset about the children of Israel and they forgot God, and they wandered around for 40 years in the desert when they forgot that God was the same God that got them through on dry land. Sometimes I'm like that. Sometimes I need to stir up these memories and these testimonies because God is the same God that put his hand over that baby. God is the same God that woke me up in time to get my children out of this house. So I'm trusting in the same God to get my children on the other side of heaven. I'm on the same God to cover my family and watch over them. That's just a testimony of what God did for me. And so why I tell you sometimes I feel like I'm his favorite is because he's been so merciful to me. He's been so merciful to me and my children. And I love the Lord. And that's the testimony of why I do fire drills and why you should too. And trust in that same Lord that'll cover you when you need. I'm praying for y'all. We're going to make it. But we're going to have to make it by the Lord's help. So call upon him while he may be found. He's just a prayer away. I love you. Happy Lord's Day.